And we are on. Hello, everyone. In the continuing evolution of technology, I'm Lynn Thompson, the associate producer of the Rare Book Cafe. This is our usual Saturday time, but not our usual program because we are streaming live from the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. I'm in Chester, South Carolina. With me is Amber Shehan, who's with Biblio.com, one of the book fair sponsors, and she's joining us from Asheville, North Carolina, where it's cool and breezy. And we've been comparing hummingbird sightings in the run-up to the show. And in the middle, of course, is our boss, the creator of the program, and our producer, Allan Smith, who is on the floor of the fabulous Art Deco Coliseum in St. Petersburg. And Allan, how has it been going? What's happening?
It is just buzzing here. There are so many people, and we are just delighted that there's so many book lovers who have come to the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. I just want to show you, I'm going to walk over here real quick to, if I don't cover up the pictures, I'm going to walk over here real quick to show you the other rows here, just to give you an idea of what's going on here. I'm going to flip this around so that you can see what we got music going there, so I don't know how. Look down those rows. Look down the rows there and look at.
That looks like quite a crowd.
People here, and look down this row right here, and here's a young lady who is all dressed in just beautiful, the mystery of Lilac Inn. And this is going out on the Rare Book Cafe, out on the internet on Facebook. And
oh, hey, Allan. Hi, you got me my glasses.
So here is the creator of all these. This is live.
Oh, hey, everybody. How you doing? I have some friends with me today. This is Emma.
Hi there.
This is Anna. They're not wearing their headgear.
But they are all decked out in just beautiful.
So we're here bring them to the book fair for the very first time, and it was 2014 where I was your spokesperson, and we had such a great time. And
this is introduce everybody to everybody. This is Meredith Myers, who's also known as the Stand-Up Librarian.
That's right.
Oh.
And so she is visiting us, and she has two friends here who are just decked out in some of the beautiful things that she produces. She creates these.
And I'm engaged now too, guys.
She's engaged.
Congratulations.
When I was a spokesperson, I met my boss here, and I've been at his library now for 4 years, and it was there that I met my fiance, who already has these beautiful kids. And so now we're all together here as a family. So isn't that amazing? So thank you, Antiquarian Book Fair. Love in my life.
And there's no promises here, and this is not an official announcement, but there's been talk of a wedding at the book fair.
Maybe we should have a wedding here next year. I don't know. It would be a reason to certainly come back, and I can make something special, like my own gown.
Yes, in one way or another, I can't wait to see your dress.
Right? Yeah, it would be good. I better start now.
Yes,
a lot of fabric, a lot of work. But anyway, I just want to say hi to everybody.
Bye-bye. See you guys later.
Come on, guys.
Okay, and I'm going to take you real quick over here to the other row. We're going to start with Stephen and Edie and Thorn, but we will have to go round them up. Anyway, I just wanted to give you an idea.
It's really hopping.
This is all about it. It really is. Just incredible. So we're very pleased with all of that. I'm going to go right back over here now to so that we can find Stephen and Edie and Thorn. They're all going to talk to us a little bit. It looks like it looks like Stephen, of course. Stephen, right on cue, is having lunch. So we're going to just interrupt him while he's having lunch. Where'd he go?
The show must go on.
That's right. And there he is back there. Stephen, we want to interrupt you while you're having lunch.
While I have lunch.
Say hi to the folks at the Rare Book Cafe.
Hey everybody, we are here, Brain Prevent Show. It's been a wonderful show, busy as can be today. As you can see, setting up a booth. This is what it looks like after 2 sessions.
It's
We loaded everything in on Thursday, which is unusual, but we thought we were going to have a tornado. Thank God for small favors that we didn't. But this is what happens at the end. Everything gets together. And then we sing a song on Sunday called "This is the Way We Box Our Books." Get them out of the book fair.
So we're going to check back with you in a little bit, but in the meantime, we're just going to be moving around the book fair.
A tour de floor. And hey, Lindsay, next
Hey.
year we want you here.
And Amber is here too.
Hello.
You're talking to. This
Hi.
is Amber.
Amber, hi.
And
Good to see you.
Lindsay. So
Where is Amber? Is Amber here? Or?
Amber is in Asheville.
Oh, wow.
Where she's
Fantastic.
tending to her baby, and also
Amber, you want to you want to practice for the future? Mommy, can I have the keys to the car, please?
Yeah, she's heading that way quickly.
Okay.
So, but she gets to start reading here pretty soon, right?
Oh yeah. She's an avid lover of books. She chews on every single one she pulls off of my shelf. So
Well, I'll tell you how I train my cats not to scratch books.
Uh-oh. All right, so
We'll see you on the rebound.
bye-bye.
Point Provincial.
All right. And we're going to stop out here very quickly, and we're going to see Edie. My buddy Edie. So, Edie, I have to show you real quick who you're looking at here. This is Amber.
Hi, Edie.
Hi.
And Lindsay. So that's who you're talking to.
Amber and Lindsay, when I'm on the show next week, I will be able to show you. I bought a miniature book with 46 tin photos in them, the little tin.
Oh wow.
And I will be showing that next week because I got it. There's the Miniature Book Society exhibit that is going on. There are so many dealers here. In the area next door to us is a dealer that came from Barcelona, Spain.
And we're going to go over there and look very briefly at what. Actually, we did that earlier. We did that live earlier, so never mind.
Okay, never mind.
But
the
look
show
for
is
it on.
fantastic. I wound up getting a
And
wonderful book cover.
you
Aw.
just met the stand-up librarian. She's also a seamstress, and she just creates these beautiful things. And she
And
created
creates
this.
something every year.
She created this for Edie and brought it by just a little while ago.
And the food is delicious. And since I can't leave the booth, I sit and I eat and I get to talk to wonderful people.
And who are you talking to here? Let's just, that's an excellent segue. Who are you talking to here? I already know.
I am. I don't know, look at that incognito, but there goes Michael Slicker.
There's Mike
with
Slicker.
only
We're going
one
to
of his
stop by and see
crutches.
him in a little bit. But this is Jerry Morse. And Jerry is the president of the Florida Bibliophile Society. Is that right?
That's right, sure.
Okay. And Jerry's going to be a guest on Rare Book Cafe sometime in the near future,
Right there.
right? Because we're going to want to talk about something you have exciting next year at the book fair, and you can tell us a little bit about that right now.
We're going to be hosting a fab tour to the Tampa Bay area. It'd be the first one they've ever had in the Tampa Bay area. We're going to invite 50 bibliophiles from book clubs all around the United States. We're going to bring them to the Tampa Bay area. We're going to show them around our bibliophile sites and wonders. And we're going to bring them to the book fair on Friday. And we're going to bring them back on Saturday.
So
That's basically
Lovely.
So they're going to have a great time
Oh, yeah.
here at the book fair next year. And next year is 2020, so we've got all kinds of exciting things that we're looking at for 2020. But so for those who are watching who are close by and will have an opportunity to do so, if they want to bring their books down on Sunday, tell us what you will be able to do for them on Sunday.
We're going to be appraising books tomorrow, right? Be from 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock. Right? We have free online sources, plus we have a little bit of knowledge ourselves. Irene Pavese will be joining me, and Lee Harrell will be joining me. Lee doesn't need anything on the web. It's all in his head. He's still knowledgeable. But yeah, we'll have some fun, and just come join us, and then we'll let us know what your books are worth.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us, and I'm going to flip this thing back around.
Oh, while Allan is moving around, I want to send a birthday wish to our good friend and frequent guest, Felix O'Neill. Today is his birthday, and I assume he's
It actually is not.
Well, then
Facebook says that it is, but he posted that it is not his birthday. So we wish him just well, I guess. I don't know how that got posted that way, but I saw that as well. But then he indicated that no, today is not his birthday. But we always wish him well anyway, right?
Absolutely, every day.
Too funny.
We're going to move right next door here to Thorne's booth. He looks like he's busy right at the moment, but we're going to just wander around his booth for just a moment because he has some exciting things that I know that he's going to want to tell us about.
In the meantime, see what he's got to eat.
I know, I'm getting hungry.
So I'm going to just switch around here so we can see the things in his booth. He has a number of interesting, very unusual books here, but he also has some other very unusual things that I want to show you in just a moment or two. I don't know if you can see.
Hard to see the details.
But the thing that I want to show you, and we'll go back, even though he's busy right here, we'll go back and we'll see some
posters.
He has movie posters that go on forever. He's got stacks of them.
Oh, wow.
And just these are things that you're going to remember, that either you saw or you didn't see, and you saw maybe on a special program. Some of them are you might have seen them on one of the vintage movie channels, but so here's one that's book related: the life, loves, and adventures of Omar Khayyam.
I never knew that was a movie.
You know, we know that copies of Omar Khayyam show up all over the place, but did we know that it was turned into an action movie where there's things exploding and we have Omar on a...
You don't remember that part of the poem?
You know that? I didn't remember that. So here's another one that's related. Tony and Piper Laurie, and then Paratrooper. I don't know that has a book related link to it at all. Outside the Law sounds like noir. Let's see, Crybaby Killer is another noir one. I'm hopeful that I can find. I found one that I guess I probably tried to hide. I hope it didn't disappear because it had a newspaper theme to it, and it was actually one that I might consider getting. Clark Gable, Jane Russell, and Robert Ryan in what nice, what a tall man, a nice collection of posters, movie posters, and I'd be interested to know what the story is on this painting.
The Phantom there, I think. Is
Uh,
that right?
but I think we'll probably need to move on to another. I'm sorry. This is Florida Illustrated. In 1890, and this is the height of the early period of tourism in Florida when people started to come down. They came down on the railroad. This features alligator hunting, cotton picking, and it shows a steamer. It has a picture of a steamer on the Ocklawaha River. A steamer's way that people got around Florida up the navigable river when they were visiting Florida. Because the roads were not what you would want them to be. In fact, they were in many cases non-existent in Florida. So it features also the Palm Beach, the Hotel Royal Ponciana in Palm Beach, which was one of Henry Flagler's hotels, and the way that Henry Flagler built the railroad down the east coast of Florida, and in the process of doing that, he also built hotels so people would have a place to stay when they came down to Florida on his railroad. So there's this whole string of wonderful hotels down the East Coast that are many of them have survived.
Alan, I think you're. I think you must be.
To a couple of other people, so
I think you must
join you in just a few minutes.
Okay. I was about to say, I think you're up against the wall.
Yeah, you're pixelated and breaking up a little bit.
Because I'm in this. You cut it out, so I'll come back out here to the floor. How's that? Is that better?
Nope, I guess not.
Well, and, we'll struggle on as we have 164 live broadcasts since we first began this series on Be Live in October of 2016. And we actually have some breaking news we can report today.
All right.
The press is beginning to pick up on the story that one of the books allegedly stolen from the Carnegie Library in Pittsburgh has been located.
Ooh.
A 1615 Geneva Bible published in London was part of the Carnegie collection. It was found to be missing when the inventory was done 2 years ago. It ended up, interestingly enough, in a library, a museum library in Holland, a museum of the American Pilgrim experience.
Wow.
And they bought the book, which is in fair condition, for $1,200 from what the FBI described as a reputable dealer. And then when the director of that museum read about the theft case, he started wondering and contacted police in The Hague, who contacted police in Pittsburgh, who contacted the FBI. And so the book has gone through a very circuitous route from the museum to the American Embassy, and then to the FBI, where it was put in a padded box provided by their art crime unit, and flown back to Pittsburgh, where it was turned over to the district attorney.
Wow.
It will be used as evidence in the case, which is set for June 24th of this year. It's been continued several times because the defense lawyers have been trying to get a listing from the prosecutor of when they believe every single one of the 320 books and maps was stolen, because they want to try and argue that the statute of limitations precludes a bunch of the claims. The judge has been telling them to go back and try and sort this out. And it's rare to see any kind of publicity. This is the first article in months. So we're going to be continuing to follow that with interest.
Definitely.
So,
Allan, welcome back.
hi, I'm back, and now I am here on, and I'm going to flip this around so you can see. I am at one of the booths here called the Book Chaser from Gainesville, and this is owned by our good friend Dottie Delfino. And she is a book binder as well as a bookseller. She does a lot of wonderful book, just creates some really, really beautiful things. But I have a friend here who is an extraordinary artist, and I just want to introduce you to her. And I'm going to flip it around here so you can meet Mary Kay Watson. Mary Kay Watson. And Mary Kay is just a very gifted artist who has created something that I think is just wonderful. And I just want you to see it. She's going to show us. This book has just been published. It's called Tangled Shakespeare. And what she has done is done a, a an abbreviated version and illustrated version of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and she's done it all in these wonderful illustrations. Let's look at some of the illustrations in there. Look at this, and she's done it in such a way that it makes it the story very, very accessible. And isn't that just beautiful?
Lovely.
Okay, so I want to ask. I wanted to ask you just a little bit about the whole process. You showed me now. This has been more than a year ago, I think. You showed me some sketches that you had done, and you had turned them into what I thought was a clever little book. That it was all printed on one sheet, and then it was called a zine. Okay, I had never seen that before. I thought that was very clever. But she's now taken these illustrations and turned them into a delightful book. So tell us about the process of coming to the conclusion that you needed to do this.
Okay. Well, I'm an artist. I've been an artist all my life, do watercolors, and I became a certified Zentangle teacher. Zentangle was started by Rick Roberts and Maria Thomas, and it's a method of drawing where you teach people to draw these beautiful, detailed designs, and it's a healing art. And I combined my watercolor and my drawing techniques with the Zentangle and came up with these Shakespeare characters. But at some point, I decided I needed to put them together and do a book.
And tell a story. And what better storyteller to choose from but Shakespeare?
Yes.
So you created all of the illustrations in this, and then you wrote the abbreviated version of the story to carry on the narrative. So this has just been published, and where is it available? It is available first. We need to say that it's available at the Book Chaser in Gainesville.
Yes.
And
there's independent bookstores that it's available. It's also available on Barnes & Noble, online and in their stores. It's available on Amazon, and you can get the book there, or search my name and you can find the print version.
Okay, and we should view that very closely here. Mary Kay B.B. Watson.
Yes.
So that's what you will be looking for, and Tangled Shakespeare. And for those of you who are attending the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, you can come by the Book Chaser. It's on the first row. It's in booth 14. So you can come there and find Mary Kay's books. So you, I should say that Mary Kay has been coming to the book fair for forever,
Probably
20 years, and she doesn't even live in Florida.
No.
She lives in
West Virginia.
West Virginia, but she comes to Florida and would not miss the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair ever.
I fly back for it. I stay here in the wintertime, and then I fly back for it after I come home.
And so, what is it that draws you to the Florida Antiquarian Book
Oh
Fair?
my gosh, there's such a variety of books, of materials, such a wide range of prices. It's everything here. I collect a lot of natural history books. I find plenty of those. Anything you can imagine is at this store.
All right. Well, thank you very much for spending time with us and showing us your work, and hope you continue to enjoy your visit to the book fair. And we look forward to seeing you next year, perhaps with a new book.
Yes, Richard III.
Oh, all right. So we are going now to go to visit another booth here very soon, and so just give me a couple of minutes to get around to another booth, and we will be right back.
Excellent.
Cool. And if you're just joining us, this is the Rare Book Cafe, brought to you weekly by the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. And we are at the book fair. This is the 38th annual event in St. Petersburg at the fabulous Art Deco Coliseum. There are over 100 dealers there, and it looks like the aisles are just packed with people who have come to take part in this big annual event, which got a lot of TV publicity in the St. Petersburg area this year that I'm sure has helped boost the crowds. So, Amber, are you feeling envious yet of your colleagues who are at the show?
I am, not just for being in St. Pete, which I am now quite fond of because of attending the book fair. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed my first couple years visiting there, and I look forward to coming back, maybe with a toddler next year. We'll see. But yeah, I really enjoy the Florida Book Fair quite a bit, and I haven't gotten many new things. I've realized that I prefer book fairs to online book shopping, but I'm probably really not supposed to say that. But there is really something special about being there, being able to rifle through a box of things, and there's something in there. You've just got to find it, and something that's really wonderful about being able to speak to the dealer directly and ask questions about provenance or things like that. It's a wonderful experience.
And one of the amazing things I find is that the book world changes every day. People think of it as being kind of stuffy and dusty, but there's things happening all the time, particularly since companies like Biblio have come along to aggregate such large numbers of searchable books in one place. I was astonished last week to read that the day after the Notre Dame Cathedral fire, 6 different editions of The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo leapt to the top of the Amazon France bestseller lists, including the original 11-volume set that he began writing in 1829. And it's just astonishing how we're all linked together, and we increasingly see these events that pull books from obscurity and bring them back into vogue. I remember Justice Kavanaugh's drinking buddy wrote a bad novel that was supposedly a roman, a clef about their high school days, and all of a sudden it was up to $1,500 online.
I bet. Unexpected royalty for that fellow, all of a
Yeah.
sudden.
And then a couple of years ago, there was Keith Richards revealed that he collected some obscure British writer who had written a book about pirates, and all of a sudden that got sold out.
We've
And then John Lithgow did a Broadway show a year and a half ago where he was doing readings and acting out from a collection of Somerset Maugham short stories. So all of a sudden, here's this book that's been out of print for 60 years, commanding $500 a copy if you can find one.
we saw similar things. I can't recall the book right now, and it's frustrating me. But Stephen Colbert featured one on his show that and the next week or so, those books were trending on the on our, we don't have such intensive lists as say Amazon or some of the big new booksellers that are able to track that easier. But we do see, especially after Notre Dame, there was art books, different photograph books, travel journals of people who had been to Notre Dame, everything collectible, especially the more unique, the better. It was amazing how quickly people responded to that, and of course, the books with ISBNs, the more accessible reading copies, just as quickly flying out of shelves as well. With many frustrated customers, who had bought something, but someone else had just gotten it, and that's where we come in.
I imagine the bouquinistes along the Seine have their boxes cleared out too.
Oh yes. Yeah, one of our big biblio friends over there is Berkeley Books, English bookshop in Paris, and they could see the smoke from their location, and it was amazing to kind of see ground level coverage from a bookseller's perspective.
Well, if any of you who are traveling to Paris, do be sure and see the bouquinistes along the Seine. They've been there for 400 years. And they have a remarkable system where they have uniform green boxes that attach to the balustrades along the sides of each side of the river. And they do business during the day, and then they lock up at night and go home. And it's said that the Paris is the biggest library in the world with a river running through the middle of it.
That's beautiful.
Well, let's see what Allan is doing here. He seems to be talking to someone.
Okay, guys.
Are you back, Allan?
Yes, we are back, and I am here with William Chrisant, who is who has Old Florida Bookshop, William Chrisant and Sons, Old Florida Bookshop in Fort Lauderdale, and William is also the president of the Florida Antiquarian Booksellers Association. And the association puts on the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. And so welcome, William. Welcome to the Rare Book Cafe. And you've been on the Rare Book Cafe some time ago, so welcome back. But tell us a little bit about what you have, what you're showing here at the book fair.
A lot of maps. This is an 18th century map of
Can you guys hear that?
Not really.
You can get a little closer, please.
We have a lot of noise here. This is an 18th century map of North and South America.
Oh, lovely.
I'm sorry.
1772.
1772. Isn't that beautiful?
It's so big. I didn't realize until I saw the hand next to it. The scale of that is...
And here we are right there, where we would have been in 1772. So, so what else do you have that you'd like us to see?
From 1699 to 1720, mostly just different parts of Europe.
Okay, let me turn around this way so I can get this right side up. So this is this is from when?
Just about 1700, 1699 to
1699 to 1720 in Europe. Okay.
as president of the Pennsylvania Commonwealth.
Ah,
Wow.
Executive Council of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Franklin was actually president of the Commonwealth, so he had to sign every document, every land grant that was issued.
So signed by Benjamin Franklin when he was the president of the Commonwealth.
This is just an 18th century map of Florida and the Caribbean.
Okay, 18th century map of the Caribbean, and then right up here to Florida. And you know, we would be right there. There. If it was then, but it's not.
It'd be a dangerous place.
That's right.
This is another 18th century map.
An 18th century map, and it includes the eastern coast of the United States, and there is Florida. And this is when Florida was divided. I think this is when Florida was divided into West Florida and East Florida, isn't it?
Depends who did the map. Oh yeah, West Florida's way up here.
You know, West Florida was a much larger place in those days.
And this is East Florida.
East Florida took over Georgia and some of the Carolinas, I think.
You know, Florida Oriental.
Yeah. So, very different place then.
Yeah. This is an 1680 book on German coinage.
Oh, look at that.
All the different coins that were issued.
So, German coinage in 1680. So, who would have guessed there'd be a coin collector's book from 1680 showing what all the different currencies were, or all the different coins were.
Wow.
This is a book on American law, 1792, with a signature of George Washington pasted in.
Wow. Too cool.
Here's an interesting fella. Did he lose his head?
That's just reproduction, but I bought it at the fair. I sort of had to
But
have it.
it's it just adds to the display, doesn't it?
Medicine compilation. $16.99.
Oh my goodness! Detailed body parts.
$16.99. It's
Very-
a compilation of medicine from that period.
So they basically already knew a lot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
There, it looks like that's a heart.
I'm not sure what that is.
Maybe
oh, no, it could be something.
maybe it's not a heart.
That's beautiful.
Anyway, yeah.
There's beautifully done illustrations.
These are Pochois from the 19.
Oh,
Geez.
look at that!
Pochois was a process invented by the French in the turn of the century. They would apply color by stencil. So this is all a gouache applied to the paper.
Oh my!
Yeah.
That's gorgeous.
It
So
is.
bright.
And to see them in person, they have a texture to them. It's difficult to explain over the internet.
It's so bold.
Yes, yeah. And the finish is nice. It's a matte finish. I've tried putting these under plastic and they look terrible. plastic takes away the. Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow. And when was that from?
1913.
Okay.
This is Georges Lepap. It's Gazette du Bon Temps. It was a fashion magazine that was put out in 1913 through 1921, 23, I think. There was a hiatus during the war, though.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Period of King's 20s and 30s.
Look at that. Harper's Bazaar, 1937. Fortune Magazine, 1937. Vogue. Here's Vogue, and that's
They just don't do bows like that anymore.
1931. Looks like
31.
Oh, gorgeous.
1933. Oh my.
It's interesting. These were issued in hundreds of thousands of copies. Hundreds of thousands. We can find none.
And they're pretty scarce now, aren't they?
The book was published in 1931. 400 copies, and there's 200 copies still none of it.
But those fall in the category of ephemera, and so they just somebody was cleaning up and tossed them out because they.
Paper drives they go through this twilight zone period where they have no value whatsoever. Read them, and what do you do with them?
Yeah.
So you toss them, and so that's why they're. It's hard to find them, and that's why they've become valuable. All.
Very often they see these are.
Vanity Fair.
1933.
And this
Oh,
is
wow.
32. Oh, isn't that 32? Is that right? 33. 1933. Oh my goodness! Look at that! Look at that art. The style of the art. Isn't it wonderful? And then this one. This is Puck.
This is from 1899.
1899.
The Americans had conquered the Philippines, and then they were trying to be colonial powers, but that didn't work out.
So, well, thank you very much for spending some time with us, and we will hope you have a terrific book fair, and we will see you soon. And if you give me a few minutes, I will be in another location and be right back with you.
Okay.
All right.
And another reminder, if you're just joining us, this is the live version of the Rare Book Cafe coming to you from the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, which is happening yesterday, today, and tomorrow in St. Petersburg, Florida at the Coliseum. I'm Lynn Thompson in Chester, South Carolina, and with me is Amber Shehan with Biblio.com in Asheville, North Carolina. And she's generously given up some time this weekend to join us and let us know what's going on in the world of book aggregators, of which she is one. It's the other things that are going on that we can look forward to in the next few months. May is the 200th birthday of Walt Whitman, and the Library of Congress has announced a number of projects and exhibitions to celebrate that through the rest of the year. One of the most interesting, and you can link to it by going to the Library of Congress website, is called By the People. And it's a crowdsourcing project to invite members of the public to help transcribe 3,000 to 5,000 pages of Whitman manuscripts.
Oh, well, I know what I'm going to be doing.
And be able to digitize them and put them online. And so that looks like a very exciting project. It started on the 24th of April and it's going to run for a couple of months. So if you have ever done that kind of work, it can really be fascinating. I did some years ago for the Bodleian Library in England. And it's the kind of thing where, if you imagine trying to translate or transcribe 5,000 pages of longhand, That's a lot of stuff for curators to do on top of their regular duties. And anytime those of us who are interested in rare books in general, or Whitman in particular, can take advantage of an opportunity like this one, it'll certainly be valuable and welcomed. And so we are, Jane Kahn is with us. Welcome, Jane. And she's wondering how much those 1930s magazines would sell for that Mr. Chrisant had, the Vanity Fair and Vogue. And I can only begin to imagine, because not only are they vivid in their colors, they were much bigger than magazines are today. They were just gigantic lap fillers. So when you got a picture like that on the cover, it was a work of art that you could easily frame.
Yeah, and just really, really in beautiful condition, considering their age. And I'm a sucker for the 1920s and 30s art style as well, and the typography. The fonts and such are just exceptional.
Just the other night, I was stumbling around through Amazon Prime on the television and came across this wonderful little 4-part documentary series on Art Deco in England.
Oh.
And they tried to look at it comprehensively, although with a focus on architecture. And they started at Claridge's Hotel in London, which apparently had a major refit in the 1920s as an Art Deco style building. And it's all been preserved. And it's like a little walking monument. They from there, they went to the design of the London Underground in the 1920s and 30s when all the stations were built. And I learned that the Underground has more listed buildings than any public works project in the world, because they hired the very best designers and architects in terms of their posters, their packaging material, of course, the legendary tube map, the signage in the stations. Everything was part of this comprehensive whole that was very forward-looking and emphasized speed and progress. And as a result, it has not dated. And I think you see some of that in these more ephemeral representations like magazine covers. They seem remarkably modern, even though they're 80 and 90 years old.
Yeah. And it's funny with the buildings and the architecture, that's what has defined so much of Asheville, is that during the, the 1940s post-war boom, through the 50s, through the 60s, all these buildings were ignored. The town was not doing well, and so no one was coming and building. So all of these old buildings from the 1920s, complete with gargoyles and tile work and these, beautiful facades, are still there and now are, a gem, whereas they were just seen as crappy old buildings so long ago, and but now they're just, beautiful. Some of the even the building we're in downtown has from the 20s, and while it's been retrofitted inside, it's still, the wooden boards creak and everything is just beautiful and curved, and the design is just too pretty.
Am I recalling that there's a beautiful restored arcade in one of the big office buildings in Asheville? I think I saw a documentary about it a few years ago.
Oh, the Grove Arcade?
Yeah.
It's basically an entire block of businesses, a beautiful walking business block, restaurants and fine arts inside, and patio seating along the outside. In fact, the Battery Park Champagne and bookstore is there, and you can get a glass of champagne and browse rare books. It's really lovely. Champagne bar and bookstore.
We want to welcome Sophia Bogle, our favorite bookbinder from Oregon, and she's saying hi to Thorne. We haven't caught up with Thorne yet because he's a man on the move as always, but we will pass that along. Jane Kahn says Detroit is much the same way as what you described about Asheville, only I imagine on a much more massive scale.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I haven't been there yet.
And I'm unusual in that I live in a town that predated all of that. This is the commercial district and the residential districts here in Chester. We're all pretty much over by World War One. So we're Victorian, Queen Anne, even federal style Georgian. The house I live in was built in 1843.
Oh, lovely.
And down the street, there's one being restored now that was built in 1860. And there's a little outbuilding behind it that was originally a log cabin where the servants lived and the cooking was done. All the houses here had separate cooking facilities because of the fear of fire. And so originally the property I live in covered 350 acres, and there were substantial outbuildings all around behind it. They're now gone. The property was divided up in the World War II era, so we're down to about 7 acres. But you can still see a lot of carriage houses and different kinds of outbuildings that have survived. And there again, Chester is a place that where a shocking number of buildings were either torn down or over time, or even allowed to just fall down. Uptown on the hill in Chester.
It's a grand Southern tradition.
In the 1940s, there were 4 major commercial buildings that just collapsed because they had been empty for so long and their owners didn't keep them up. So we have these kind of missing teeth along Gadsden Street. But now that's beginning to come back into vogue, and you can move here and buy a 10-room house for $200,000. One out on York Street sold recently, built in 1856, corner lot, and complete with furnishings that were original to the house, including a broadwood piano that was shipped over from London by one of the early cotton merchants.
Wow.
Chester was an unusually prosperous little town because it became a railway junction. We had the first rail trains come in 1852.
Okay.
Which was just astonishing. And then at one point, late in the 19th century, there were 5 different railway companies serving Chester for both passenger and freight. As a matter of fact, I have some wicker chairs out on the front porch that came from one of the parlor cars of the Lancaster and Chester Railway Company when they redecorated at the turn of the 19th century, or the 20th rather. And they, everything in a small town like this seems to have a provenance because the friend for whom I manage this property and whose parents have been here since the earth cooled, one of his great uncles was the director of the line. And so when they were getting rid of all this stuff and upgrading the furnishings, he just had them hauled over on a wagon and parked them on the front porch.
There you go.
They've been there for 75 or 80 years.
Wow.
So I think we're kind of between things here. Let me alert our guests as we actually begin to wind things down. We have ample opportunity for you to comment if you want to join us. We'd love to hear from all of you, and we're delighted that so many of our old friends could be with us today. Let me remind you also that we will be on again tomorrow at 11:30 in the morning. Tomorrow will be a little shorter day. It'll be over about 4:30. And the big feature tomorrow will be the Florida Bibliophiles and some of the members of the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair coming in to value books. So you can, if you're in the area, you can take in books and tap the minds of some of the smartest book dealers in Florida, and they'll tell you what you got, which is
so bring a stack of those National Geographics I found in the attic, right?
Somehow I doubt there is a shortage of those just yet.
Those aren't worth Vogue ones yet. Okay, I'll hold on to those.
People, when I was in the used book business some years ago up in Greenville, South Carolina, a lot of geographics would be donated, and I would just want to dump them, and people would get conniption fits. And no, you can't possibly do that. So I'd put them out, and no one would buy them. They're just one of those sentimental attachments that we have. Our grandma had them, and it was something reassuring about seeing a 5-foot shelf of those yellow spines, and then looking at the covers over the decades and watching the number of acorns disappear until they finally went away entirely.
Yeah, right.
I think those and Reader's Digest condensed books are the two things that simply cannot be sold.
Just never. It's impossible.
And I have tried just to prove to people that it can't be done. We had a whole bunch of condensed books come in at a thrift shop here in town that I was volunteering at last summer. And I said, waste of space, they won't sell. Oh, yes, they will. People love them. So one of the volunteers even said, oh, I'm going to buy them when I get back from vacation. And months later, they're still up there in boxes, taking up valuable shelf space because they are books that are forgotten, and the idea of condensation was a novelty back then. I know my dad was a great fan of them, but he was that World War II self-improvement generation.
Right.
Where all of a sudden in the 50s, you had big symphony sets of classical music, and you had art sets. And everybody was trying to improve the mass mind of America. But Jane Kahn says they're the librarian's donation nightmare. And I think that must be true, how to politely smile and thank people for things that are just no use whatever. And part of the problem is that with ephemera is guessing which ephemera is the right ephemera. For example, city directories and phone books are big space fillers as well, but they can have a historic and research value that makes it worth hanging on to them.
I have one that I actually found at an Asheville thrift store, and I couldn't pass it up because it was in surprisingly good condition for being the 1955 city directory for Asheville. Some of the businesses that are in there are still in operation generations later, and the maps and the phone, phone numbers are all, of course, even a completely different format at this point. But I figure just for the novelty of it, it doesn't take up but so much space on my shelf. And, maybe there will be someone interested in it one day.
Allan is back with us to help us wind things up. Where have your travels taken you?
My travels have taken me back to the Everglades. Everglades books anyway. And with Jonathan Tomhave, who we have met before, but he has some an interesting thing that just thought you might want to see. So let's, Jonathan, show us what you have.
Okay, follow me. This is basically the story of how William Randolph Hearst gets constantly persecuted for his interest in sexual adventures and misadventures.
Oh, right.
You remember Citizen Kane came out in 1939?
Right, exactly.
Well, that was a persecution of this man right here, William Randolph Hearst. William Randolph Hearst in the year 1915 was up to the same thing, except they made fun of him in a different way in 1915. He owned a series of newspapers, and he had a very famous newspaper reporter and illustrator named Nell Brinkley. Nell Brinkley was an independent woman who came from a small town in the Midwest. She arrived in New York and then bounced around and ended up working for William Randolph Hearst. William Randolph Hearst did his level best to seduce her. He tried this constantly. In fact, it was so well known, and he was so much of a failure at it, that one of Randolph Hearst's artists, named Jack Lustig, who wrote several books on how to do drawings, decided to do a drawing of the entire non-affair. And this is what he produced. You notice it says his pipe dream, Nell Brinkley, Jack Lustig. It's only a pipe dream, as you can see, because Nell Brinkley never gave in to this man. Jack Lustig then decided to make art out of it, and he got fashioned a little smoking jacket
and he entered it into the San Francisco International Exposition, and it was accepted. And this tells you one thing. It tells you that the art community was pretty small, and William Randolph Hearst still had a sense of humor. But by the time he had lost his sense of humor and was furious when Citizen Kane arrived on all the screens.
He just didn't think that was particularly funny,
Apparently,
or particularly flattering. Certainly,
it wasn't flattering, it wasn't funny, and I think he's been persecuted so many times with peccadillos that he reached his boiling point and couldn't take it anymore.
It was all over.
It was all over.
Well,
That's too
Jonathan,
neat.
thank you very much for sharing that. And we're here again. I think we have occupied you for another perfectly good hour that you could have probably used elsewhere otherwise, but
Much more effectively.
but instead you were here at the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. We will be back tomorrow, and I'll let Lindsay tell you about all of that, but we will be back tomorrow. And I've certainly enjoyed being here with you on the Rare Book Cafe today, right here live from the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair.
Well, we've had several people ask about Thorne and Steve and Edie, and so we must try and capture them tomorrow so that everyone can know what they're up to and whether their assistants and gnomes are working with them.
Okay, well, we will stop by there. We'll be back at 11:30 tomorrow morning, and we'll stop by there first thing, and then we'll be making some other visits around the book fair.
Well, thank you, Alan. You've done a yeoman job again, and thank you, Amber, for making this such a pleasant afternoon. You can be back to the toddler now.
She'll be happy about that.
And thanks to all our viewers, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 11:30 a.m.
11:30. Cheers.